Hey guys, we have finally made it to Friday. The week has felt like it's been longer than usual, and I for one am looking very much to getting a bit of a weekend getaway. However, the weekend hasn't started yet, and I'm not leaving you without giving one last morning video for the week. Today we are going to talk about how Wall Street managed to evade justice back in 2009. There are two components to this subject. Today I want to take the easier approach, since I do not want to overload you guys with too much stuff at the end of the weekday. The other component is one that has to do once again with the SEC in particular. I know we talked in detail how the SEC pretty much evades enforcing two laws in particular on a video released a week ago. The next component is going to attempt to answer the question as to why it is that the SEC is avoiding doing its job. I do not even know how to begin making that because the amount of information I have found is extremely overwhelming and complicated, so it will either be out next week or the week after it. But that's not a worry for you guys. You will be treated this morning as to an explanation as to how banks and everyone involved in architecting the recession of 2008 got away with crime. I want to thank both Matt Taibbi and William Cohan. Their great research and publications have served to explain what happened after Wall Street got prosecuted and got away with burning the world. Their great pieces inspired me to make this video for you guys. Before we get started with today's segment, let me quickly disclose and state that I am not a financial analyst or advisor, and that all contents discussed in this video are provided as opinions. All efforts are placed to better understand the nature of the current market in anticipation of the greatest squeeze in financial history. Everything presented is evidence I collect, and all opinions are based on research, experience and knowledge on the matter. Shout out to all my Patreons and one-time donors, who continue to support and carry this channel into greatness. Now, let's get started. Why does nobody ever go to jail on Wall Street? It's always the same names involved in scams and fraudulent behavior, but we never really see anything being done to end this. Why is this? Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America and Morgan Stanley. The world doesn't go a year without a couple of these entities making headlines for breaking the law and abusing consumer trust and money. They always slip away from real consequences, as the fines imposed don't do anything to deter past behavior from happening again. In fact, the only person that has actually been properly punished for crimes against the public was Bernie Madoff, whose victims, ironically enough, were made up of rich famous people. The only crime punished is always the ones done against the rich. Funny enough, when prosecutors actually manage to successfully take cases to court and get Wall Street members convicted, the fines imposed by the law are actually never paid by the convicted party. In fact, banks and other institutions convicted of defrauding their shareholders will actually use shareholder money to pay for their own crimes. If criminals are not being punished, since they are simply passing the bill off to shareholders of their companies, the question becomes, what kind of justice is actually being achieved? After the economic crash that the world experienced in 2009, the Justice Department did not hold back from prosecuting Wall Street. But something funny started happening. The general fear that the economy was too fragile and that it needed the oversight from those who actually fractured it in the end caused the unexpected acquittal from punishment. Serious investigations were issued following the president's call to action. Wall Street's biggest banks were all issued subpoenas, and civil prosecution against banks and individual bankers were still a possibility. This is where things start getting interesting. An investigation team led by Benjamin Wagner investigated JP Morgan Chase. The usual stuff took place, which include reading through emails, interviewing current and former employees, and everything in between. One of the highlights of this investigation was that Wagner's investigation has deposed Elaine Fleischman, who told the investigators everything that had really been going on at JP Morgan Chase behind the closed doors. To sum it up, she had seen the numbers much like Michael Burry did. She then promptly detailed a series of warnings about how continuing to package bad mortgages into securities and sell them off as investments was not a thing that should be continued. As you might imagine, her warnings went unheeded by her superiors, and after sharing her investigation and concerns with what was taking place with her supervisors and superiors, Fleischman became marginalized in the company before getting fired. Wagner's team was successful in dismantling the mystery and culpability of JP Morgan in helping orchestrate the disaster that left millions unemployed and homeless. You would think this is where the story ends, with a great happy ending, and you would be wrong. This is where things start getting sour. JP Morgan Chase agreed to paying $13 billion in a settlement with various federal and state agencies. But paying off billions of dollars worth of fines with shareholders' money can hardly be accounted as justice. On top of this, JP Morgan and the government actually negotiated a deal where they would write a narrative that stated all the facts that had transgressed. On this statement, all the details that Fleischman detailed had occurred and been ignored by management were omitted at best and glossed over at worst. This left the statement not naming anyone in JP Morgan Chase. All the bankers guilty of diving the world economy into the ground got to keep their name from the statement, allowing them to get away scot-free. The reason the government even came up with such a disgusting deal is because of the benefit that it provided them in the short term. You see, the Justice Department makes an agreement with the guilty bank. William Cohan puts it best. The government threatens public disclosure of behaviors that look criminal and then, in exchange for keeping it sealed, they extract a huge financial settlement. No one individual, or group of individuals, is held accountable. No pre-dawn raids of Park Avenue apartments are made. No one gets arrested and no one gets publicly shamed. To put the cherry on top of this disgusting tale, many of the people involved in prosecuting these banks, in investigating what happened, left the government agencies they worked under and instead switched carriers to work in the private sector, many which are firms that among their many clients, have Bank of America, Wells Fargo and Citigroup in the list. They went to work for the bad guys in the end, bringing all that expertise to serve the dark lords on Wall Street. I have no doubt that these tools have provided great value to these banks. As you can see, prosecution is made, as politicians push agencies to do something and investigate wrongdoers, but justice is never the real intention. It's all politics. Though investigations and trials are made, the punishments are too lenient, and they aren't paid by the culprits. Instead, by bankers making deals with the government, they get to erase their name from official statements, and no civil lawsuits or anything can really touch them. As such, these penalties given to them in court are then written off as business expenses, some which upon deeper investigation, I have found out that banks and other convicted institutions can inconsistently do write-off on their taxes so they can pay less. Since a penalty of say a hypothetical $1 billion can be written off as a business expense, they get taxes deducted. This is how the rich get away with crime. This was a very direct video showing how Wall Street got away with all the crimes they did back on 2008, but know that nothing has really changed in the rulebook. In fact, more elaborate ways have manifested, infecting the very agencies that are here to protect us. Like I said, this is only part 1. In the second part, we will take a deep look at how the SEC got corrupted, and I will give you a clear blueprint and image as to why it is that they don't protect you. I have all the answers for you guys, but it will take me a while to put it all together in a nice sizable video that is easy to follow along and understand, which is the most important thing for me. It's a ton of work, as I am looking at about 10 hours of redacting dozens of sources into a full video, so please be patient with me. I am only one person. I do not have an editor or assistant. These videos take a crazy amount of time to make, so don't get all up on me if the video comes later next week in a morning video or if it gets delayed into the very next week. However, that does not mean no more morning videos. Like I said, for the time being, I have a steady flow of morning videos starting Wednesdays all the way through Fridays, and that will not stop for the time being. If you want to help out the channel, the number one thing I ask is that you guys comment on the section and give me feedback. I know it sounds boring and repetitive, but I do care to know how you guys feel about the topics I cover. Feel free to leave suggestions and to let me know if you like the video or if you think it was poorly made. I do this with passion for you guys, and I just want to keep on getting better, so please do that for me. If you are willing to take it a bit further, and want to really support this channel beyond feedback, I have provided links which will be in the description for donations and a Patreon if you would like to pledge a monthly donation of any kind. This support really goes a long way for me guys. All money is spent on improving equipment and other parts of the channel so that we can continue to upgrade the quality of Simulate and Trade. It is my source of income as I am doing this full time now. It makes a huge impact and difference, so if you are able and willing, do consider it. I will see you guys later today after markets close for a video centered on our beloved meme stocks, and then I will make a small video on Saturday and Sunday. Stay strong. Buy the dip and to the moon.